It's southbound Briley Parkway right at Two Rivers Parkway. Again, it's a little bit slow here because of that stalled vehicle. It's clogged up pretty good now on 24 east and west here at Ellington Parkway, Shelby. Trying to get off the South Loop. That's increased even more there on I-40 at Upper Even Broadway. Watch for radar. I-24 out through Rutherford County. STR Towing and Recovery says give them a call 24/7 if you need their help. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
Premier 6 Theater on Broad in Jackson Heights.
Let's all go to the movies.
Check out what's showing at murfreesboromovies.com. Popcorn popped fresh daily.
Movies like the good old famous days.
Premier 6 on Broad in Jackson Heights.
Rutherford weather.
Mainly clear with fog and spots tonight with a low of 38. Daytime highs approaching 66 and foggy early tomorrow. Lots of sunshine. I'm WGNS meteorologist Derek Height. Right now, it's 58 degrees.
We do it your way at Sir Pizza.
Murfreesboro's favorite pizza is now hiring at all 3 locations. That's right. Join the Sir Pizza team. Just stop on in and ask for a manager.
We're the Good Neighbor Network. FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro. FM 100.5 Smyrna. Audio and video streaming at wgnsradio.com.
From the first pitch to the final buzzer, this is where the conversation starts. All sports talk on WGNS and Big G TV, covering the Preps, MTSU, news from Tennessee and nationwide. Now, here's all sports talk on the Good Neighbor Network.
And good evening, folks. Hope you're having a good one today. Dylan Simmons with you on this Thursday, February 26th, 2026. Believe it or not, our final February edition of All Sports Talk. I tell you what, this month has flown by so far, and this show's going to fly by too because it is a special Lightning Round Thursday edition of the show. We've got, of course, pregame for the MTSU women's basketball team coming up at 5:30 as they take on the Liberty Lady Flames, so we'll get out of the way for that at 5:30 sharp. We'll talk more about them on the show today and their matchup tonight, as well as MTSU men's basketball back at the Murphy Center for a big-time showdown in the second of their 3-game homestand against the UTEP Miners, and we'll finally talk a little bit of NASCAR going into the weekend as they head out to the great state of Texas. Let's start tonight talking about that aforementioned MTSU men's basketball game as they take on the UTEP Miners. The men's basketball team, I think in this, is facing one of their biggest games of the season when you combine stakes, importance, and momentum. Now, trying to win in Conference USA is already a pretty difficult task with how competitive the conference is this year. But when you add ramifications that could affect the inevitable CUSA tournament, it only makes this game bigger in the eyes of a lot of people, myself included. Now, last night on the show, we talked about how MTSU men's basketball got a win over Delaware on Saturday thanks to a consistent offensive attack, tremendous first-half defense, and maybe their best rebounding game of the season. That kind of win, we also said, can serve as a springboard throughout the rest of the season if you allow it to be. Now, it's up to the team to use that to their advantage, but if they're able to convert that momentum that they gained from the Delaware game, well, it should be smooth sailing throughout the rest of the regular season. Now, here's what I'm looking for in tonight's game. And that's really if whether or not MTSU is going to be able to get off the mat after the win they got on Saturday. Now, that may sound confusing at first because it may seem easy for a team that just won a game to be able to go out there and just take care of business. But we've seen times throughout the year, not just for MTSU, but for other college basketball teams and in Conference USA, how you can win a game and then all of a sudden you're not the same team the next game because you're still over the moon about what happened before. You haven't been putting in necessarily the due diligence or the right practice over the last couple days, and it ends up affecting you. So how will MTSU respond? Are they going to use that game as a piece of evidence to say, hey, look what we've already accomplished, look what we did on Saturday, let's go out and do that again? Again, that's up to them to decide, but they have to make sure they take advantage of that opportunity and use it to their best, to the best of their advantage. That, to me, was the best defense that they've played all season long against Delaware. I mean, they just dominated the first half, only allowing 20 points to a pretty good Blue Hens offense in recent games, and a team that specializes in the three-point shot really couldn't get anything going from beyond the arc. So MTSU did a phenomenal job with that. The key in this one is that they can't let their defensive success slip away from one half or one period to the next. We saw it on Saturday how MTSU got off to a great start defensively, and then in the second half, it's almost like it started to slip away. They didn't have their foot on the throttle as much, and all of a sudden Delaware was able to chip into that lead just ever so slightly. They ended up coming back, and eventually it got down to a single-digit game before you knew it, and MTSU kind of had to scrape things together in the final minutes to come away with a victory on Legends Weekend. So if you're MTSU, you do not want that to happen again tonight, and you got to make sure to avoid that defensive lull in the second half. So that's what I'm trying to say here is I hope that they're able to maintain that defensive effort and that defensive success through the entire 40 minutes of regulation, and who knows, maybe overtime, because we've seen a few overtime games for MTSU men's basketball this season, but you want to maintain that same defensive effort all the way through, if at all possible. I think you need that sort of defense to win tonight, especially with the team they're facing in UTEP, and you also need it to win Conference USA, no doubt, especially with some of the good teams in CUSA right now. Now, their opponent, the UTEP Miners, they're going to be trying to stop a two-game losing streak of their own by beating MTSU 10-17 overall, 6-10 in Conference USA play. So the record may not be the most intimidating, but what is important to keep in mind is that MTSU's 7th in the CUSA standings is only one game above UTEP. UTEP's down in 11th, but there are so many teams kind of log-jammed up in one place that it only takes a team one or two losses to all of a sudden go from middle of the pack to the bottom of CUSA. So you do not want to lose this game if you're MTSU. You want to put UTEP further down, you want to boost yourself up, because every win you can get means that much more with the ramifications of the CUSA standings, and that's why this game is so crucial tonight. Looking at UTEP themselves, there are a couple players that they're going to be relying on tonight, I think, for the most part, and that starts with Elijah Jones. Jones averages 14 points per game, a versatile threat from the outside and inside the post for UTEP. He can do a lot of great things offensively for the Miners, and he's shown that time and time again. He's not a one-trick pony. He can get it done from any place on the floor, and MTSU will have to be ready for that. But I'm almost more interested to see what Jamal West Jr. can do, because he's the player I would be keeping an eye on the most if I'm a Blue Raider. 13.9 points per game. He's the guy that's going to try to dominate inside the post. We saw how MTSU had the advantage against Delaware inside the post. Can they get it again in this game? That's not to mention that West got 22 points the other night against New Mexico State. So this guy, he can score and score in bunches if he gets on a roll. MTSU has to be aware of that. They've got to keep him in check. Now, UTEP's defense, pretty solid overall. Number 5 in Conference USA, as a matter of fact, when you look at the statistics. They may be one of the best defenses that MTSU faces in this latter part of the season, and maybe in the remainder of the season in total. We've seen them have pretty consistent offensive success, MTSU that is, regardless of opponent this year, but will that stand? I can't say for sure. UTEP's going to be a pretty interesting challenge, and MTSU is, they haven't faced many defenses that are quite like them, so they're going to have to be ready for whatever challenge UTEP brings to them tonight, even at home. If MTSU gets a win here and carries that into Saturday, it puts them in a great spot, in my opinion, to eventually get closer to that top 5 in Conference USA, which will look really good come tournament time in Huntsville. But that's only if they keep winning, which I think they absolutely will. But you got to put the pieces together, and you got to make sure that you capitalize on this opportunity. You can't let this moment slip away. So MTSU will have to be dialed in all the way through. I think they're going to need Chris Loof to have a big night once again from the paint, as he did against Delaware with a 13-point, 11-rebound double-double, his second of his career. And you'll need one or both of Kamari Lands and Torrey Alston to have a big night themselves. I think Torrey's the guy to have another explosive night and to take the fight right to UTEP in the post. I think if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be him. So I would keep an eye on Alston, and of course Kamari can get it going from beyond the arc as well. Both of those guys should be key pieces tonight. I do think MTSU is going to find what they need to win tonight, and I would say that it's going to be a win that will help them elevate into that next level that they're looking for throughout the rest of the CUSA season. Speaking of basketball, MTSU women's basketball takes on the Liberty Lady Flames tonight on the road in a huge matchup, hot off the heels of a really unexpected result against Western Kentucky on Saturday. And it's very rare that you see a Rick Insell team end up in a situation like that. I think it stunned a lot of people, but the good news is you can put the past behind you in a hurry, and that's what MTSU is going to have to do tonight. In the last game against Western, what kind of doomed MTSU was their inability to get revved up early in the game. At times, it did look like they somewhat sleepwalked through that game against the Lady Toppers, which I don't expect that to repeat. I see it as more of an aberration rather than anything else, but we'll get more into that in just a second. Apologies, folks. Dehydrated, if you can't tell. You're going to need one of Elena Contreras, Macy Pfeiffer, or Blair Bogus early on to get into takeover mode. I think in the last game, you didn't really have anybody who just came out and was firing on all cylinders. You need to see if you can get that tonight. I think Contreras is probably the player to do that. She's proven she can do it time and time again this season. She already did it once against Western back on January 31st, and I'd imagine that she can do that again here. If she gets going from the three-point line, all of a sudden that opens up the offense for everybody else down the stretch of this game. I also think MTSU is going to need some great rebounding. With what we've seen from Liberty this season, they're a team that likes to fight for rebounds, that gets a lot of them. MTSU, well, they've got some players who can do that also. Macy Pfeiffer, Blair Bogus, both freshmen, but I think, two of the best rebounders in the conference as well. And I think you can bet that they're going to make a big difference in this game. I think those two could be the X factors for MTSU. Obviously, they get a lot of points and rebounds as is, but I'd expect them to have a huge role in potentially elevating MTSU tonight. Of course, a lot of history between these two teams. Last year they met in the Conference USA Championship game, with Liberty taking it and then moving on to the NCAA tournament. And of course, Rick Insell got his 500th win against this same Lady Flames team just a few weeks back. So already that history in the backdrop of tonight as well. Lady Flames with two great players, Avery Mills and Emma Stout, who averaged 15.7 and 13.8 points per game. Didn't have the best game versus MTSU last time. The defense did well to hone in on them. MTSU is going to have to make sure to do that again. And, of course, you've got to watch out for Ife Nawabi, who's getting 9.7 rebounds per game. Going to be a tough player to deal with inside if you're MTSU. This is where your rebound aces of Pfeiffer and Bogus are going to be key to keeping the Lady Raiders in position to keep Nawabi at bay. And I would say that if they win that rebound battle with those two players, I think MTSU has their sights set and should have their sights set on a victory tonight. I think the Lady Raiders are going to have enough to come away with a win in this game. And like I said yesterday, I believe what we saw on Saturday, a bit more of an odd game, an odd duckling, for lack of a better term. And I think that it's going to be just a game that MTSU uses as further motivation towards the end of the year and eventually gets on the right track heading towards the CUSA tournament, of which they're the number 3 seed right now. We'll see if they can elevate that as time goes on. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit of NASCAR. They're heading to Texas to go race at the Circuit of the Americas. I'll give you my full race preview and who I think could come away with the victory on Sunday. All that and more still to come on All Sports Talk.
Every team knows which play can be a winning move. I'm State Farm Agent Andy Womack, here to help life go right by combining your home and auto insurance. Call me today at 615-890-0850. It's a winning move that saves you time and money. Your ride, your stuff. You live with them together. I'm State Farm Agent Andy Womack. It's smart to protect them together to help life go right. Give me a call at 615-890-0850 and let me help you save by combining your auto and renters.
You know, everyone has a more. First, it's a pony. Then to be on the cheer squad. Your more grows up just like you do. But your more can still carry you away or make you cheer. At First Bank, banking local gets you more. More of our time, more access to local bankers, more flexibility, and more product choices. Because getting more empowered and confident helps you pursue your more that never grows old. First Bank. Bank local, get more. Member FDIC.
We can get surprisingly great rates on auto and renter's insurance at State Farm. Hello, I'm State Farm Agent Deb Insell, and we're your one-stop shop for protecting your car and your stuff for a surprisingly great rate. So stop looking around. Team Insell is ready to help. Call 931-684-5274 for your surprisingly great auto and renter's rate today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
This is Chip Walters, and I'm honored to be your 2024 MTAR Realtor of the Year. I'm with Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates, and like many of you, I've seen the real estate market shift and change. People often ask, Chip, what's really going on? Well, that's a great question, and I believe in answering with solid, factual data. So let's cut through some of the noise. I invite you to reach out. Let's have a conversation about your real estate goals and the current market trends in your neighborhood. You can find all my contact information at choosechip.net.
Lace up your best kicks for a night of impact benefiting First Shot. Join us for the annual Sneaker Ball, presented by Venture Express. Spend Sunday, April 26th with NFL Hall of Famer and Super Bowl MVP Marcus Allen. The event kicks off at 6 with a VIP meet and greet at 5. Reserve your table today. Call Coach Andy Herzer at 615-631-5312. We'll see you at the Sneaker Ball, benefiting First Shot on April 26th.
Clark's Auction Company will get you top dollar for your property.
Auctions are easy, fast, and profitable.
You have a staff that comes to your home. They walk you through it. It's been my experience. What I thought I should get for my home, I got much more for it.
Call Parks Auction and Realty or visit parksauction.com.
Clark's Auction Company will get you top dollar for your property.
Clark's Auction Company, committed to auction excellence.
Sold it to you, 27.5.
Good afternoon. We're looking at this car up against the wall in a terrible spot over here in the Two Rivers area. It's southbound, Briley Parkway, right at Two Rivers Parkway. Again, it's a little bit slow up here because of that stalled vehicle. It's clogged up pretty good now on 24 East and West here at Ellington Parkway, Shelby. Trying to get off the South Loop. That's increased even more there on I-40 at Upper Even Broadway. Watch for radar. I-24 out through Rutherford County. STR Towing and Recovery says give them a call 24/7 if you need their help. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
It's all sports talk from the Good Neighbor Network, FM 1019, 100.5, AM 1450, wgnsradio.com, and Big G TV.
Welcome back here on All Sports Talk. It is Lightning Round Thursday on the Good Neighbor Network. Dylan Simmons with you. I've been going to the gym a bit more recently. Kind of got back into it after a little bit of a lull. My arms have been sore all day, which I think is the point, but it does make it a little bit awkward when you have to put the headphones on and you kind of have to wrench your triceps and they're already sore. It's a very uncomfortable feeling. Those who've lifted weights before probably know what I'm talking about if you've then gone on to do any sort of physical exertion with the arms afterwards. So it's a bit of an awkward feeling, but enough of my odd stories away from the actual show. Let's get back into it. NASCAR back again this weekend, and of course that's always a reason to celebrate. They're going to be in the great state of Texas, heading to the Circuit of the Americas, another great weekend of America's favorite motorsport. In all seriousness, I think COTA has been a really great addition to NASCAR and to the schedule in recent years. I know there's been talk of maybe having it get subbed out for another track. I like it, honestly, and I'd like to see it stay in the future. I think it's a great part of NASCAR's initiative to make the schedule more unique as time has gone on, and I think it represents a really good thing moving forward for NASCAR. Kind of that balance of tradition and going back to your roots, but also looking ahead to the future with new and exciting tracks, and I think COTA has been a great part of that initiative. As far as how this race plays out, I see a few different ways that it could go down. I think you obviously have to look at who has the best history on road courses. And of course, you know who I'm going to bring up when I'm talking about that. It's Shane Van Gisbergen, SVG. Of course, he's the first one that comes to mind. Won 5 of the road course races a season ago, has generally been dominant in those situations. If you're a NASCAR fan from my era, you may remember the name Marcos Ambrose. He was a racer from Tasmania that came up, I believe, around 2009, 2010 to the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series as it was known back then, and had a lot of success on the road courses. Got his first career win with Richard Petty Motorsports back in 2011 at Watkins Glen, and he was kind of SVG before SVG. Now, NASCAR did not have as many road courses back then, I should say. I wish 2011 was last year. That would make me feel a lot younger. But, they didn't have as many road courses back then. Back in those days, it was just Sonoma and Watkins Glen. So we don't know how Marcus would have done in this modern era. I'd imagine it may have looked something like this. SVG gets the chance to race on, 6 or 7 road courses throughout the season, and he's shown that he's going to take advantage of those opportunities. 5 road course wins a season ago. We've never really seen anything quite like the dominance that SVG has on one specific set of tracks. And we've always said that if SVG can figure it out on the ovals, oh my goodness, look out NASCAR, because he could just dominate the sport if that were to happen, because nobody has been able to challenge him for his road course crown yet. I think he's obviously got to be the favorite in this one. Here's an interesting thing, though. He has not won in COTA in his career. He won all the road course races except COTA last year, and it's always been a track that somewhat stumped him for the most part. Is that going to play out on Sunday? We'll see. I think you've also got to give a quick look at my favorite driver, Connor Zilisch, soon to be the greatest driver in NASCAR history. Maybe a little bit of an exaggeration, but maybe not also. You got to look at what he was able to do in the O'Reilly Series last year on his way to a 10-win season. He also won 5 road course races, so he obviously has the ability to go out there and win a road course race or 2 in his rookie year. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked if it's kind of just him and SVG swapping road course wins as time goes on. Now, of course, there are a few caveats to that. With road course racing in the Cup Series, it's a lot different than the O'Reilly Series. They're different handling cars. They're bigger. They're bulkier. They race differently on these types of tracks. Connor's still young. He's trying to transition into it. It's not going to be a slam dunk at all for Connor Zilisch, but I would expect him to be a contender at points in this race. I think he's going to have top 5 speed. He's got the handling. He's got the know-how. The kid is a prodigy. And I say kid because he's younger than me. He's 19 years old. He's my brother's age, and yet he's going out there competing against the best in the world. So got to give a little love to Connor Zilisch, and boy, I hope that he's able to pull it off this weekend. I really think he's going to have a solid shot. And, of course, the last guy I'm going to bring up, Tyler Reddick. Can he make it 3 in a row? He may have a better chance than you'd first expect. He's already won COTA in the past. He's shown, like I said yesterday, that he's had speed no matter what the racetrack has been so far this season. Daytona, he had plenty of speed. Obviously, he won the Great American Race. And then last week at Echo Park Speedway, I called it Echo Park, meant to say Atlanta, my apologies. At Atlanta Motor Speedway, he won with a right front fender that was invisible, a.k.a. wasn't there. He didn't have a right front fender, and he still won the race after being caught up in a crash. So he's certainly shown the speed on the drafting tracks. How will that translate to a road course? Well, historically, he does have a win at COTA. Got that back in 2023, if I'm not mistaken. It was either that or 22. But either way, he's been able to get a win at COTA, shown a lot of speed at COTA, has gotten multiple top 5 finishes at COTA, and I wouldn't be shocked if he's able to do that again. But will he be able to? What I will say is I think he's going to have a top 5 run. I don't know if I see him winning this race this time, but if he does, I will come on the show and say, I was wrong, Tyler. You won the race, and I whiffed on that take. I don't